Hi everyone. So someone made a comment on one of my videos that I want to show you. He wrote, "Do you know any more Germans?" Actually, I'm beginning to think he's not a native speaker of English himself anymore. Shouldn't it be like any more? Never mind. Do you know any more Germans like yourself that does YouTube? Yeah, he's definitely not a native speaker of English. Yeah. Um, I wonder where he's from. So anyway, do you know any more Germans like yourself that does YouTube and also speaks or translates in English? I'm highly interested in hearing from the German thoughts and minds on the assessment of the worldly order of things. Is the American US politics an influence on the average German? I replied, um, yeah, that I'm not an average German, but I know how average Germans think, and they're very much influenced by the German media, who basically demonizes the U.S. It's good old fashioned German propaganda against the US, portraying them as like evil imperialists and evil capitalists and so on. And it's much worse now. They're really demonizing them. I don't even want to get into what kinds of names they're calling the US now. But yeah, so the average German has a negative view of the US because of the reporting in the German media about the US, who basically portrays the US as, well, like I said, even worse than I said. I don't want to get into that too much. But if you're watching this, if the guy who made the comment is watching this, I would love to take you up on your offer, and I think this is an interesting and important topic. And like I wrote, I think it's actually important to get into this because, to so as to expose some of the misconceptions and prejudice that Germans have about Americans. So I would love to take you up on that and talk about that. And so I would love for you to get back to me. And in the meantime, I'm actually gonna go ahead and do that because and now this is kind of turning into a let's watch. um, because I've just watched this lovable show, um, Facts Matter with Roman from the Epoch Times. I love the English Epoch Times. German Epoch Times. There is a German Epoch Times, but nah, not so much. It's completely different than the English Epoch Times, and I think that's also because just because the media in Germany is so different. The media in Germany is a mess, and the German Epoch Times is a mess. But I love the English Epoch Times. Yeah. So and I haven't really watched it yet, but I just saw that he's talking about some interesting things, and I'm gonna do what the commenter just now suggested, and give you my take on it, and explain some things from a German perspective of, well, from my perspective, really. But I think it's gonna be interesting, and I can talk about it in a way that you probably haven't heard before. Um, yeah. So I'm gonna show you a short clip from what Roman talks about, and then I'm gonna talk about it. I hope you can hear it okay. I'm gonna summarize it afterwards, and I hope Roman is gonna be okay with me doing that. It's just a very short clip, no copyright infringement intended. I hope you don't punch me. I don't know if you can hear it. I'll summarize it afterwards anyway, and I don't want to show too much of the show anyway because I don't want Roman to get angry at me. Watch it yourself, actually. Just go to Roman's channel and watch his show. It's great, and go watch it now before YouTube deletes his videos.
Good evening. City officials over in Baltimore have just announced that they are permanently no longer going to be prosecuting low-level crimes like prostitution and drug possession. Meanwhile, over in Oregon, over 100 Antifa members who are heavily armed with guns, bats, and shields, they clashed with pro-Trump supporters over the weekend. Now, over at the U.S. southern border, Senator Ted Cruz attempted to take a video of the migrant detention facility, but he was blocked by a Biden staffer who told him that he couldn't film. And lastly, in order to pay for their multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure package, the Secretary of Transportation, he floated the idea of taxing Americans for every mile that we drive. Let's go through these stories together.
Okay, I think I'm just gonna keep it at that. So you got that right. Baltimore will no longer prosecute low-level crimes, and here it just says like prostitution, but it's also a whole bunch of other what they call low-level crimes. It's actually, you know, pretty much any crime that doesn't involve killing someone, pretty much. Yeah, so yeah, so all kinds of low-level crimes. Well, it's especially, you know, yeah, prostitution, but not just prostitution. Trespassing, what was the other thing? Probably, I'm assuming here, but probably, you know, being there illegally. I'm just assuming, but, you know, a lot of other people will also assume that. And, oh yeah, drug use won't be punished, and traffic-related crimes, and a whole bunch like that. You know, whole bunch of quote-unquote minor crimes or low-level crimes. You know, they won't be prosecuted anymore at all. So I imagine that being difficult, though. I mean, if trespassing is no longer prosecuted, I mean, think about it. What that means in reality. You think, oh well, trespassing isn't serious; it doesn't matter. But they also explain that not just will it not be prosecuted, but at least Roman in his video explains, and the article he's referring to explains that as well. That also the police will no longer respond to such things. And the purpose was to make the people not call 911 in those cases, right? So if someone if someone enters your house and refuses to leave, you can't call the police anymore. That's stupid. What are you supposed to do? You know, well, okay, well, you could if you're a gun owner, you could probably, you know, find a way to get him out of the house. But I think the logic here is that no. Well, actually, I think then you would be persecuted, right? Because that would be a violent crime then, right? Well, it would be justified because he's trespassing, but since trespassing isn't really a crime anymore, or isn't regarded as a crime anymore, you'd be the criminal if you try to remove him from your house, right? Or at least it would be difficult. You know, at least in a situation like that, I would like to have the police there because, I'd be afraid that in the end he'll try to frame me as the bad guy if I try to use violence, and I would have to probably use violence in a situation like that. He's probably not going to respond to, oh, could you please leave? You know, he's probably, he's not going to respond to that, right? So I would have to violently remove him, or at least, use force to remove him from my property. And then I would be the criminal, and I would get prosecuted because I use force. This is stupid. Think about it. What would the implications here in reality? This is okay. So first off, this is totally stupid. Secondly, if I'm watching this, as a German or someone from another country, I'm thinking, wow, great. So, no, I don't do drugs, and I don't like prostitution, right? But if I would be someone who would be into those kinds of things, I'd be like, oh great, I'm gonna head over to Baltimore. I'd be thinking, oh well, Biden is gonna let everyone into the U.S. now anyway, so I'll just cross the open border, go to Baltimore and just stay there. They won't prosecute low-level crimes, which probably means they won't, do anything about me being there illegal. And while I'm there, I can, I can't work officially, but I can, since prostitution and drug abuse are no longer prosecuted, I'm sure I can find ways to earn an income, right? If I would be a bad guy, I'd be thinking like that. I don't know if that's actually the case, if that's how, I'm pretty sure that's not what they intended, but that's how it comes across, right? Someone from another country with bad intention hears that, and he thinks, oh, he can just, cross the border illegally now, that it's not going to be a problem, and he can just come to Baltimore and do whatever he wants. He won't be prosecuted. That's the impression people get, right? So think about it. Is that really the impression you want to give people? Is that a good idea? I don't think it's a good idea, but obviously the officials in Baltimore seem to think that's a good idea, and it should be a no-brainer that that's not a good idea, and that crime is probably gonna skyrocket in Baltimore now, and it actually has. Roman is giving some examples. Well, in some areas, crime has actually gone down, obviously, because certain crimes aren't prosecuted anymore and aren't really considered crimes anymore. So in those areas, crime goes down. But of course, in a lot of other areas, crime goes up. So actually, yeah, crime goes up. So obviously, crime is gonna go up. Obviously, that's not a good idea. But the officials in Baltimore seem to think that's a good idea. But let's see how long it takes for Baltimore to. Oh dear. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, I'm not gonna make any predictions, but let's see what happens. And the other story he's talking about, and that I want to mention, is Antifa rioters stormed Oregon Capitol. That's what it says up here. And down here it says, heavily armed Antifa clash with drivers at Oregon's Capitol. And he goes on to explain, Antifa was heavily armed and was attacking people and really, really violently attacking people. And I haven't heard about that at all. All we hear here in Germany, in the German media, is constantly, we still constantly hear about the terrible terrorists on January 6th who made that horrible terrorist attack storming the actual big capital in Washington. We still hear about that. I haven't heard about the Antifa rioters attacking the Capitol in Oregon at all. I only heard about that from Roman now. Yeah, I checked some major German news media. So they should have long, had that story by now, but they're not reporting on it. So apparently it's only it's again it's probably if it's a horrible terrorist attack if those evil Trump supporters do that. And Trump supporters, as we know here in Germany, are of course all evil Nazis. That's how they're portrayed in the German media. I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm not gonna, I don't know, but that's just how they're portrayed in Germany, right? A lot of people don't get that at all, and they think, well, you call Trump supporters Nazis. No, I don't. The German media does, and terrorists and so on. And yeah, we heard a lot about the horrible atrocities committed by Trump and his evil Nazi followers here in Germany. But no, we haven't heard about Antifa at all. Well, we hear about. Well, actually, we don't hear about. Well, we hear a lot about Antifa, but not from the news. Just like for example, my aunt. she actually really looks forward to seeing Antifa, because she knows on every 1st of May, on the 1st of May of every year, she can go shopping for free because she lives in Berlin, right? And every year on the same day, Antifa makes like a really big riot in Berlin, and including in the district where she lives, right? And they smash all the stores, and she just waits until they do that, and until they have left. But she just waits for the time when they have done destroying things, but before the police move in, right? That's important. You have to. Well, she does that. I'm not doing that, but but that's important. You don't want to go quote unquote shopping too early, right? Because then you have the rioters, and it might be dangerous. And she also has a little kid and so on. It could be dangerous, especially for little kids, right? So you want to wait until the rioters are gone, but before the police can get there, right? That's important. So, and then you can go shopping. It's great. She does that every year, and she openly talks about it. And yeah, it's a lot of people actually do that in Berlin. So that's but yeah, so that's why some people even like Antifa, because they get free stuff, because the stores are all open, thanks to them. I don't know how it will be this year with all the stores being closed anyway because of the lockdown. But it doesn't matter. Even if the stores are on lockdown, if Antifa smashes the storefronts, they will open again, and people can still go shopping. So it's gonna be an even bigger shopping spree this time. Great. So yeah. Anyway, that's how people in Germany hear about Antifa. Antifa, we call it Antifa. Um, yeah, that's how we hear about it, and that's how I heard about it. Just by them having a riot in my neighborhood, and smashing. Actually, in my case, they just only smashed street signs and some cars. But I actually, I actually saw that in person. I was there, or rather, they were in my area. It's not like I intentionally attended their riots. It's just that they're rioting so much that basically no matter where in Germany you live, they'll be coming to you at one point or another, and yeah, it's gonna be a riot, and that's how here in Germany we hear about Antifa. But let's see what. So we don't hear about it from the news. We just, see them smashing things in person. Oh, I actually made a video about that. I myself filmed a video of Antifa smashing street signs. When they were having a riot in my city. It's on my German channel. You can watch it. But let's go on with Roman. Um, let's see. So Roman made that nice introductory video here about Antifa. Um, just a short thing. Gonna show you, and I'm gonna comment on it. So what does it say here? The far left Antifa extremist group has been in the headlines this year. Like I said, not in Germany. We all know about them, but like I said, we just personally know them. But we don't hear about them in the news. We just personally see them smashing our stuff. The group has been involved in a number of violent protests. Yeah, you could say that. A lot of them. Pretty much. In Germany, pretty much all of them. What are the origins of Antifa? Okay, yeah, I'm sure they're gonna get that wrong, so that's why I'm gonna gonna that's why I want to watch it with you, and I'm gonna comment on it. Let's see what they say, because I'm sure they're gonna get the origins wrong. The group was originally formed in 1921 as a front group for the Soviet Union. Yeah, that's sort of, yes, that's actually accurate. Um, to be more precise, it was formed after Bavaria. You probably don't know that, but you can Google that. Um, After the First World War, Bavaria was actually a communist state. It was called Bayerische Räterepublik, which translates to Bavarian Soviet Republic. Okay, that didn't last very long. That only lasted for basically, well, it's difficult to say because there were two phases, but all in all, yeah, like let's say a couple of months. Actually, most people will say it was only 1 month, but there were two phases to it. So if you count both phases, it actually lasted a couple of months. So for a couple of months, Bavaria was declared an independent country and was called the Bavarian Soviet Republic. Um, yeah, and what a lot of you can Google that, and what you can also Google, and what a lot of people won't know, is that that's where everything started. That's where Antifa started. Well, officially, they were formed with support from the Soviet Union, but the genesis of groups like Antifa really lies in that little violent revolution they did there in Bavaria. Um, yeah. So and that's also how they got the idea of funding a group like that. How the Soviet Union got the idea of funding like a paramilitary force that would uh, incite and fight such revolutions like they were doing in Bavaria. And to strengthen that paramilitary force, because the reason the Bavarian Soviet Republic collapsed is precisely because at that time they didn't yet have enough training and support from the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union realized, okay, well, if we give them more training and more support, then next time uh, they fight for a violent overthrow of the German government, they're going to be successful. That's what the Soviet Union figured, and that's how Antifa was formed. And keep in mind, it was officially formed. The genesis was already earlier in the Bavarian Soviet Republic, but it was officially formed and called Antifa in 1921 with support from the Soviet Union. Actually, what happened is the Soviet Union supported the KPD, Kommunistische Partei Deutschlands. That's just German for Communist Party of Germany. So the Soviet Union supported the Communist Party of Germany, and then they supported Antifa and founded Antifa. And they also, specifically gave them support to form Antifa as a sort of militia group that could fight such revolutions as they have fought in Bavaria 2 years earlier. Yeah. Let's go on. Right. So yeah, this is accurate. I already said that. The goal of the group was to incite a communist revolution in Germany. Right. I already explained that. And well, to use violence to do that. It was basically, supposed to be like a paramilitary force, like the paramilitary forces that were fighting in the revolution for the Bavarian Soviet Republic. Right. So here it just says the Soviets believed that after the Russian Revolution, Germany would be next. Right, right. That is accurate, except that they don't explain why. They don't. Of course, they would think that because there was already the Bavarian Soviet Republic. It had already happened. It just didn't last long enough, you know. So they had good reason to think that that would be feasible because it almost already worked, you know. So yeah, it's accurate, but they don't explain why. They don't mention the Bavarian Soviet Republic. Well, I guess it's too specific to go into. A lot of historians don't mention that. But I can tell you what it says here on the photo. So it says, here it says, "Long live the red." Um, what do you call that? The long live. Uh, Unified Front. Long live the Red Unified Front. And here it says Anti-Fascist Action. And here it says something about, here it says KPD, which I already explained means Communist Party of Germany. KPD. Kommunistische Partei Deutschlands. Communist Party of Germany. And so, as you can see, and you can see that on their flags. This isn't even the best example. Actually, the building of the Communist Party of Germany, they have a huge building, or had a huge building in Berlin, like the headquarters. It was a huge headquarters. There's another photo that I don't think they show it, but you can Google it. There's a photo of the big headquarters of the Communist Party of Germany in Berlin, and all over the building it has that symbol, with the Antifa symbol, and all over the building it doesn't just say, oh, headquarters of the Communist Party of Germany. It like says headquarters of the Communist Party of Germany in like very small print, but then in big letters and in big symbols it says Antifa and Antifaschistische Aktion, anti-fascist action, and so on, like it says here. So they didn't even try to hide it at all. They didn't try to hide the fact at all that the that the Communist Party of Germany was behind Antifa, and they didn't also they didn't hide the fact that the Soviet Union was behind the Communist Party of Germany. Um, you know, just as you can see with what they called their little socialist paradise that lasted a couple of months. The Bavarian Soviet Republic. Soviet Republic. So they didn't try to hide the fact that Antifa that they didn't at all try to hide the fact that the Soviet Union was behind the Communist Party of Germany, and that the Communist Party of Germany was behind Antifa. They just they just openly stated that they didn't hide that at all. It seems to me that for because they made this video, it seems to me that apparently Americans don't know that, right? But to Germans, it's no secret. They didn't try to hide that at all. mm. Germany's Communist Party formed the Antifaschistische Aktion group under the banner of anti-fascism. No, actually, directly under the banner of the Communist Party of Germany. I already explained that. And well, we're going to talk about anti-fascism in a second, because it doesn't mean what you think it means. Oh, here it says, das Abzeichen des Antifaschisten, and I can't read the rest. Well, the whole time, as you can see, it talks about Antifa, Antifa, Antifa everywhere. But this is actually a ballet, as you can see, and also, yeah, probably can't see it on this further because it's too small. But if you could zoom in, this is not a rally of Antifa. Antifa doesn't have rallies like that. Antifa just has riots. So this wasn't actually a rally by Antifa, even though it says Antifa everywhere. This was actually a rally by the Communist Party of Germany. But I already explained that, they didn't separate between the Communist Party and Antifa at all. So at Antifa meetings, they would have banners from the Communist Party of Germany, and at meetings from the Communist Party of Germany, they would have Antifa flags and slogans and so on, as you can see here. So they didn't even separate them at all, Yeah, so here was a thing they got wrong. Well, okay, they didn't. Well, yes, they're right, and you can look into that. Look into how Mussolini got started. Mussolini, yes, was a socialist, and you could argue that at least initially, what he called fascism was actually his form of socialism, at least initially. So yes, there is a connection between socialism and fascism, but this is Italy. If you want to know about that, look into the history of Italy. Yeah, so I'm not gonna go into that too much. So yes, they're right in saying that here. That yes, fascism was invented by Benito Mussolini, a Marxist and socialist. Yes, he was initially a Marxist and socialist, but actually, well, this statement, I was going to say that this statement is true, but actually, this statement is also wrong, because fascism wasn't invented by him. He just took that concept of fascism and the name, that already existed in socialist circles, and he used it to form his own movement. He popularized it and made that his movement. But both the term and the name and the concept of fascism already existed in socialist circles before Mussolini. He just took that and made that into his movement and made it popular. He just popularized it. He didn't invent it. So the word invented is wrong. If they would say he popularized it, then it would be more accurate, because it already existed in socialist circles before Mussolini. But yes, they're right in saying that it originated from socialist circles. So keep in mind the dates here. Mussolini took power in 1922, but Antifa was already formed in 1921, right? Keep that in mind. And here again, Hitler tried to emulate Mussolini in 1923, and actually that was the first. Actually, it was just a publicity stunt. I think Hitler was, of course, Hitler was hoping, yes, that it would work. So if it would, he was like, oh, he must have, if it was any, if he had any brains, he must have known that it's probably not gonna work. But he must have been like, okay, yeah, I'm probably not gonna be able to seize power with like, a few people in a burger boy, a few people in basically a German bar in Munich, with a few people in a German bar, well, burger boy. Yeah, it's a version of a German bar, basically. Yeah. He must have realized that he's not going to be able to seize power with a few people in a German bar in Munich. He must have realized that. So it was really just a publicity stunt, because before 1923, the National Socialists were completely unknown. They had just a few members. Nobody knew about them. Nobody talked about them. They weren't a thing at all. So people only started to hear about them in 1923, after Hitler's little publicity stunt of trying to seize power. He knew that he wouldn't be able to seize power with just a few men he had. He knew that. It was a publicity stunt. And it worked. He wasn't able to seize power. That was not the point. But it gave him the publicity he needed. He was in complete obscurity before that. In complete obscurity. So much in obscurity that a lot of people don't even know that I talked about the Bavarian Soviet Republic, right? And I'm not making this, some of the things, I imagine some of the things I'm saying might sound, very surprising to Americans because they don't know about that. But you can Google that, look it up yourself. I'm not making this up. So Hitler was so unknown that most people don't even know that in 1919, during the Bavarian Soviet Republic, he actually was an official. He was voted as a communist, or he had people elect him as a communist official during the Bavarian Soviet Republic. Just a low-level official in the Bavarian Soviet Republic, but a communist, But he was so little known back then that most people just didn't know that. That's how obscure he was. He was so obscure that he could just say later, "Oh no, it didn't happen." But you can Google it. It's true. He was a low-level official in the Bavarian Soviet Republic. A communist, and and national. You can also Google that. At the beginning, National Socialism was introduced as a form of socialism, and in his first speeches, Goebbels compared. You can also Google that. The New York Times reported on that. That was one of the first reports they did about the Nazis. Was one of the speeches Goebbels made, one of the first speeches he made, and in a lot of his early speeches, he would actually compare Hitler to Lenin, and he would say that Lenin is like the best revolutionary and the best leader, second only to Hitler. You can Google that. The New York Times reported on that. Goebbels said that. That's what National Socialism was. It was introduced as a form of socialism, and Hitler was introduced as being comparable to Lenin. So that was in 1923. That's when people started to hear about the Nazis after their publicity stunt, and then Goebbels made those speeches, comparing Hitler to Lenin and introducing National Socialism as a form of socialism. That's how it was introduced initially. But before 1923, the Nazis existed technically, but no one knew about them, right? But Antifa was founded in 1921, right? So even if they were founded in 1923, but they were already founded in 1921, but even if they would have been founded 2 years later in 1923, at the time where the Nazis would at least be known to some people, even at that time, they wouldn't oppose the Nazis because the Nazis were the National Socialists. They were promoting Lenin. They were promoting socialism. So what you have to realize is that during that initial phase, or the way actually, Antifa was founded, Antifa, the fascists that they were opposed to, they say they're anti-fascists. But I think a lot of you Americans don't realize what that means. You think, oh, they're opposed to fascists, so they were opposed to the Nazis. No! The Nazis didn't even really exist yet when Antifa was founded. The Nazis weren't a thing. So who are they referring to when they say, oh, anti-fascist? Who are the fascists then? Couldn't have been the Nazis. And well, okay, there was okay. Mussolini didn't come to power yet, but Mussolini's movement was already a thing in 1921. Yes, so they could have been referring to Mussolini, except of course they weren't, because Mussolini wasn't relevant in Germany. You know, why would they make this big movement of opposing uh, 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 Mussolini in Germany when Mussolini wasn't a thing in Germany? You know, I mean, yes, some people in Germany would have already heard about Mussolini, but he was over in Italy. You know, he wasn't relevant to Germans. So why would so many Germans unite under the red communist flag to oppose fascism if fascism didn't refer to the Nazis yet, and the Nazis weren't even a thing yet, and the actual fascists were over in Italy and had nothing to do with Germany. So, you know, what did they actually mean then? You know, actually, what they mean by fascists was the SPD. SPD is uh, uh, SPD, Sozialdemokratische Partei Deutschlands. Those are the Social Democrats. You know, it means SPD means Social Democratic Party of Germany. That was the party in power in 1921. That was the party in power during the entire Weimar Republic. You know, so that was the era of the Weimar Republic. It was after the Second World War and before, yeah, this asshole here, this this guy here, whom you've probably heard about, uh, came to power. So before he came to power and after World War II and uh, bullshit, after World War One and before World War II, when this lovable guy came to power, you know, that was the Weimar Republic, right? And in the Weimar Republic, the ruling party was the SPD, the Social Democrats, the Social Democratic Party. That was the fascists that the anti-fascists were opposed to. That's who they meant by fascists, not the Nazis, not Mussolini. It was the Social Democrats. Now you probably Google that. I know you can't believe it. You probably never heard about that because they don't tell you that over in America. Because you don't know enough about German history. You just use your stupid arguments about Hitler and whatever, thinking you know about German history. You don't. Uh, Google it. It's not a secret. It's on the German Wikipedia. I don't know if it's on the English Wikipedia. Um, but yeah, it's not a secret. So Antifa was founded as an organization to oppose the Social Democrats. The Social Democrats were the fascists they were referring to. So why were they so opposed to the Social Democrats? You'd think, oh well, but uh, Antifa are founded by the Communist Party of Germany, right? So why would they be so opposed to the Social Democrats? Well, because the Social Democrats were in power and the Communist Party of Germany was not. So the Communist Party wanted to gain power, and so since the Social Democrats were in power, they were the biggest adversaries, right? So much so that actually, and you can Google that as well, that actually the DKP, nee, KPD, Kommunistische Partei Deutschlands, yeah, there was so much opposed to the SPD, to the Social Democrats, that the Communist Party of Germany actually teamed up with the National Socialists to oppose the SPD so that the SPD wouldn't be in the majority anymore. So they actually teamed up with the National Socialists to defeat the Social Democrats. Google it. I'm not making this up. Google it. It's on the German Wikipedia. At least on the German Wikipedia, and probably also on the English Wikipedia. I don't know. Maybe they omitted that on the English Wikipedia. But there are other resources than Wikipedia. So just do your own research, and you'll realize that everything I'm telling you is true. I know it sounds far fetched because you've never heard that. because that's not how history is being told to you. Because both the National Socialists and the normal socialists, they want you to think that National Socialists and socialists would be opposites and that they would have always fought each other. When that's not the case at all, But they both want you to think that. So history is being portrayed, especially in America, where you don't know about German history, is being portrayed in that manner that makes you think that, oh, socialists and National Socialists would be opposites and they would have always fought each other, when nothing could be further from the truth. They were allies. They were actually allies in World War II in the beginning as well. It's only after this lovely asshole here started invading the Soviet Union that the narrative changed, and both the Soviet Union demonized National Socialism, and the National Socialists demonized the Soviet Union. Only then did the narrative change, and that's the narrative we have now. But that's National Socialist and Socialist propaganda from the end of World War II. But at the beginning of World War II, all the way back to the end of World War I, they were allies. And the Communist Party of Germany was allied with Hitler to defeat the Social Democrats. And the Social Democrats were the fascists that in Antifaschistische Aktion. That were the fascists that the anti-fascists mean, that's the fascists they were fighting, the Social Democrats, the good guys at least during the Weimar Republic. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to promote social, I don't like the Social Democrats, right? But at that time, in that situation, during the Weimar Republic, the Social Democrats, they were the only ones who were keeping dictators like Stalin and Hitler at bay. That's why the socialists and the National Socialists united to defeat the Social Democrats. So in that scenario, yes, I would take the Social Democrats over. I would choose the Social Democrats over Hitler or Stalin anytime. Not true. Not true. Like I said, Google it. Everything I said is true. This statement is not true. After Hitler's coup failed, some Germans started supporting the Antifa to oppose the Nazis. Okay, well, maybe some. Maybe there were one or two. But the majority, no. The majority were actually working together with the National Socialists to oppose the Social Democrats. Antifa only started to openly oppose the National Socialists after Hitler came to power and started, and then of course, when Hitler came to power, Antifa was like competition, right? And then it became time to eliminate the competition, right? And then, when Hitler came to power, then he increasingly started to persecute Antifa, because at that point he didn't need them anymore. He needed them before to oppose the Social Democrats and gain power, but after he gained power, he didn't need them anymore. So then he started to persecute them and get rid of them. And only then did Antifa change the narrative and was like, oh, no, the fascists aren't the Social Democrats. After all, the fascists are the National Socialists, yes. But now it's too late and they're already in power, and yeah, we're all screwed. Yeah. No, I would even disagree with that, because, well, basically the Social Democrats, uh, they're influenced by uh, communist ideology as well. It's just that uh, communism preaches a violent revolution, and the Social Democrats oppose that violent revolution. You're right. So Social Democrats is like they're like a watered down version of socialism. They're like peaceful socialists, right? Which is why they weren't able to well they, it's oh well, I don't want to say too much or anything bad about them, but um it's like a watered down version of socialism and it's like they're trying to be peaceful socialists, but that doesn't really work because you also have the violent socialists, right? So every time the violent socialists defeated the more peaceful socialists, that happened every time. That's actually uh, why we have the Bolsheviks. What does Bolshevik mean? Bolsheviks means they're the majority, right? They're the majority. Majority opposed to compared to what? Majority of the people? No, they were the majority of the Communist Party. It, so indicating that there was also there was a minority in the Communist Party. So it's the same thing. So every time the socialists managed to gain power, there were always two factions. The more peaceful socialists, the social democrats, that don't want to use violence, and the more violent socialists that use violence. And every time the more violent socialists defeat the more peaceful socialists, because the more violent socialists have more guns. Uh, yeah, and that's why we have Bolsheviks. They were the majority of the people in the Communist Party, and they were and they supported Lenin and his more violent approach and his violent revolution, right? And there was a minority that opposed Lenin. Guess what happened to the minority, to the Mensheviks? Minority, Mensheviki. Majority, Bolsheviki. The Bolsheviks gained power, and the Mensheviki, the minority in the Communist Party, mysteriously disappeared, just like the Social Democrats mysteriously disappeared, thanks to both the National Socialists and the normal socialists like Antifa. So that's why I'm saying this statement isn't too accurate either, because they don't just oppose anything other than communism. They even oppose any communists that disagree with them, and even use violence to get rid of them. Right. It labeled all groups it opposes as fascists, including the Social Democrats. Yeah, horrible fascists. And that was actually the original fascists in Antifaschistische Aktion. Not just, of course, the capitalist system. Yes, they fight the capitalist system, but if you had a social democracy in the U.S., they'd be fighting that just the same. They fight everything that's not them. No, yeah, yes and no. That's sort of how that was the narrative at the end of World War II. Because Hitler changed the narrative and the anti-fascists changed the narrative. Then they were like, oh no, we're opposed to each other. But like I said, before and especially when the Social Democrats were in power, whom both of them hated, uh, they weren't opposed to each other at all. They were, allied with each other to oppose and depose of the Social Democrats, and that's actually how Hitler came to power in the first place. You can Google that. He wouldn't have Hitler. The uh, uh, the Communist Party of Germany, Kommunistische Partei Deutschland, they helped Hitler gain power and gain the majority. They allied with Hitler in the Reichstag, uh, so so that so that they could gain the majority over the Social Democrats, or at least that was the intention. And you can Google that. Yeah, yeah. Well, see that's why. Yes, that's not actually the case, but that's how some people saw it. That's how the middle class saw it. Um, See that because how shall I put this? In a way, fascism is well, we already talked about that, right? Fascism is a form of socialism, and it's a more successful form of socialism. At least it was at that time, and National Socialism too was more successful than mainstream socialism, which is why the National Socialists ultimately gained power and not the normal socialists, because the normal socialists um, they only appeal to the workers, right? And yeah, but the middle class and the upper class is gonna oppose them, right? So to really successfully uh, gain power and keep it and rule a country, you ultimately need the support of all the people. Um, so you can do what Lenin did and just kill the middle class and the upper class. But that only works once, right? Because people in Germany saw that Lenin did that, and they were like, well, okay, now we know what they're gonna do, We can't, the middle class was like, well, we can't let the socialists gain power here in Germany, because they're just gonna kill us like they did in the Soviet Union, So of course, the middle class is gonna be opposed to socialism because they don't want to die. Mussolini and Hitler realized that, and that's why we have a fascism and National Socialism. It's still socialism, but instead of opposing um, the capitalists as a class, um, they made the capitalists into a race. Look at the propaganda that Hitler spread, or that the National Socialists spread. Look at the way they're portraying Jews. Um, the way they're portraying Jews, and if you look at the actual propaganda, don't look at how the propaganda is described in your American history books. Look at the actual propaganda the Nazis were using against the Jews. The way the Jews are described are exactly like capitalists. The Jews were the substitute for capitalists. Why? Because then you can unify the nation. If you and that's also the goal of fascism, of Mussolini's fascism, though Mussolini used a slightly different approach, but it was still the same idea. The idea was to eliminate opposition without having to kill the opposition. That was Mussolini's idea. And Hitler was like, yeah, same idea, but we can still kill the Jews, right? So, Hitler is somewhere in between, what Mussolini did and what the socialists did. Um, Hitler found a way to eliminate opposition by Germans uh, by not opposing any Germans, not opposing any classes of Germans, but just opposing non-Germans. He demonized and opposed people he described as non-Germans. So that way, he has the support of all the Germans, and that's how he was able to gain power. That's why the middle class supported Hitler, because they knew Hitler is going to kill the Jews and not them.
Now, if you would like to read more about the...
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think I talked a lot, and I don't have the means to make such great videos as Roman has, but I know some stuff, especially about Germany, that Roman doesn't. Even though Roman is a great guy, love him, but yeah, he doesn't know too much about Germany. Yeah, so I just wanted to, like I said, I probably, if you, I'm not great at making videos. I don't script them. I just, start rambling and I repeat myself a lot. But if you made it through, I think you realize I kept my promise. I told you a lot of things you probably didn't know. And, just fact check everything I said, and you'll realize I was telling you the truth. And now you know a whole bunch of stuff that's really interesting and that you probably didn't know before. Yeah.